right. Hey guys, I'm Amy.
And I'm Paul.
And welcome to the Comics Hall. Sorry, we were just doing a little pre-show mojo to make sure that our technology worked this week. We are here to cover for you all the book
It
releases from
worked.
Wednesday, April 14th. We are halfway through April already, which is terrifying, and I shouldn't say it, but like, oh my goodness. How we feeling?
Can you believe we're in April? Are
I,
we just gonna? Are we gonna? Not only are we halfway through April, but we're already in the. Hold on, fourth month. I was making sure I got the number right. Fourth month of the 21st year. It was of the 2000s. Amy,
I was like, where are you going with that?
thanks.
Oh my goodness, and we're going to feel even crazier taking a look ahead today at some of the books that are coming up throughout the summer. We've got great looks at this today's releases. We've got stuff that you can pull ahead for. We got a lot of fun stuff going on today, but let's get started. We've got a wonderful moderator in the chats today. I didn't forget.
Rob, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Rob be in the chats with you, passing along any questions you have for Amy and Paul, and just talking general comic books with y'all.
Wait, hold on, Rob. I want to. Do you not have a farmhand background?
It is not a farmhand background
It's
this
What?
week.
Die.
It's Die.
What has?
I started Die this past week, and I'm in love.
Oh, it's just getting better. Unfortunately, we're kicking off towards the last arc once it comes back because they're going to end at issue 20, which is like, okay, Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans, I respect that. That's a great place to end it, but also, how dare you? So, welcome to the club. And for those of you watching, Rob did read all of the books that we're covering this week, so if you have any questions for him, you can also toss them towards him. But before we get into all of that, let's kick it off with some comic book news. We got some fun stuff coming up this week. We got a lot of cinematic news for you guys right now.
We sure do. And starting off with something I'm really excited about is Batman: The Long Halloween. We finally got a trailer. So DC has released the first trailer and the official Blu-ray art cover for the animated adaptation of Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. That's right. Part 1. The film launches on digital and Blu-ray on June 22nd and is, of course, inspired by the iconic story by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, in which Batman is confounded by a serial killer who times their hits with major holidays. It's been out for a long time, but we're not spoiling any of that story now. The voiced cast includes Jensen Ackles, of course, known from Supernatural. It has Batman, Troy Baker as the Joker. He's played the Joker a couple of times now. And the late Naya Rivera as Catwoman. The trailer can be viewed on DC's official YouTube channel, right meow. That's a Catwoman joke.
Oh my goodness, and I've got one for you. It's the way that it's a part 1, it's going to be a long Halloween long film because they're going to break it up into multiple parts.
Amy, don't we have other news?
We do have other news. We got some news coming out of I'm so excited about this. I mean, actress Lucy Liu has been officially cast for the Shazam movie sequel, which is titled Fury of the Gods. So according to the reports, she will be playing the villainous Calypso, who is the second daughter of Atlas, who, bear with me here, is one of the Titans of ancient Greece and one of the A's in Shazam's acronym. So, we're getting some connections with the gods that form up Shazam's acronym. And Calypso is also the sister to Hespera, who is going to be played by the previously cast Helen Mirren. And Shazam Fury of the Gods is set to release on June 2nd, 2023, which doesn't quite sound like a real year yet, but it's coming up. And like somebody on the internet, whoever, I mean, I saw the sentiment expressed by many people, but someone said, if you cast Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as the villains, I'm going to be rooting for the villains. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm very excited about that.
It's not coming out till June 2nd, 2023, so it's going to be a pretty long Halloween until we get to there. Now, me and Amy also have some really exciting news that we're both going to sort of tag team here. It's something that we're telling all of you first because we seriously appreciate all of you, everyone who tunes in and watches and connects with us on multiple platforms. But the Comics Hall has its own Sideshow official Facebook group now called the Local Comics Society.
Also known as your LCS.
Your LCS. So right now, or maybe after the show, you can go to side.show/your LCS and join the group. Now, I'm going to let Amy get into this a little bit. This is what we're considering a soft launch, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a soft launch right now. We've laid the groundwork for the group, but we're going to make a big official opening announcement on Sideshow's official channels at some point in the very near future. But for now, we want to make sure that the people who listen to and watch our show are able to get in first. There's no expiry date on using that short link to get in,
Yeah.
but it's a soft launch right now. This is going to be a group for sharing your comic collections, talking about new comic book day releases, asking for recommendations, anything that involves the celebration of comics and comic society. So while we love being able to work with the Let Your Geek Side Show Facebook group, we wanted to make sure that the comics posts had their own place to live and go. And we chose the name Local Comics Society because we're bringing the LCS to you wherever you are,
Yes.
whether you read digitally and want to participate or you go to a physical store. We just wanted to make sure that we get a chance to connect with a global comics community. Same rules apply as in Let Your Geek Side Show. It's going to be a real nice, fun, happy place, and mostly for the celebration of comics. So again,
Yes.
right now, beta launch, you can go to side.show/your LCS,
Mhm.
and then you can be taken to the local comics society group, and that'll be so much fun. And I can't wait till we get that launched for real.
Yes, but yeah, we're getting everyone the chance to sort of get in on the ground floor. Just email Rob. I think it's only like $25, right, Rob? Is that what you're asking? No, I'm just kidding. Of course, it's obviously
We're
free, but we
extorting people now.
what are you gonna do? But yeah, seriously, thank you all so much for watching, and we really wanted to open it up to all of you first before we start bringing, because once Star Wars Week happens and Princess Week, people are going to start flooding in because we have some fun content planned for both of those very different but somehow similar events.
Yeah,
But
and
I'm getting
I
ahead of
can't
myself.
I can't say for certain, but because we're going to be an official Facebook group, we might get in on some of the giveaways and stuff that happen during event weeks. You never know. Can't make any promises. I can only promise you that there's going to be comics in there. That's about all I know.
There will be, and Rob, super moderator Rob, says it's not extortion because he has bills, so that's true.
Okay.
Amy, we've got comics to talk about.
We do. We've got a lot of comics to talk about this week. Let's jump into our weekly haul. We are chugging along this month. This is the second week of comics in April. A huge week for a lot of different characters, some cool launches from Marvel, DC, and more. So we're going to jump right in with the aim of the book. For those of you who are returning, you guys already know what this means. Shout it out in the comments if you already know. It's kind of like
Yes.
saying Shazam. Like, what's the aim of the book? Boom, power up. But for those of you who might just be joining us, the aim is our grading system because we don't like to use numbers. They're very subjective. So we like to give you all the tools that we feel you would need to know picking up a book in the stores. The A stands for accessibility. How easy is it to grab and read? How likely are you to find it on the shelves as well? How do you access this book? I is for interest. What other books would you, or what other books are you reading that might be similar to this one? Who would like this book? Who's the intended audience? And is there any buzz around this book in the community? Speculators or movies coming up. What is the interest level in this book? And M is money or the monetary investment. We want to tell you how much it costs, how many pages you're getting for that. Is there anything special about the price of the book? And that is what you need to know before you go into the comic book store.
Hmm.
So, Paul, you want to kick us off with our first aim of the week?
I sure do. And it's a book that I am very, very, very excited about. It is Batman, the Detective, written by Tom Taylor, art by Andy Kubert, colors by Brad Anderson. Of course, this is a DC Comics book. I think that kind of goes without saying. And letters, I'm sorry, by Clem Robbins. Really, the story of this is there's a horrific tragedy that happens in the UK, and the Dark Knight, you got Bruce Wayne, Batman, flies off to I think it's Leicestershire. Leicestershire. Leicestershire.
Lester?
No,
It might be
not
Leicester.
Leicester. I don't have it right in front of me. I just put it away. But he goes to the UK to discover, and he goes to the UK and discovers that this is a very coordinated attack and by some people that are very near and dear to Bruce's heart. Now jumping right into the aim of this, as far as accessibility goes, how easy is this to find? Really easy. This is a huge launch for DC. I don't think you're gonna have any. You can walk into your local comic shop right now and you can find it. And there are, I believe, quite a few variants. There's probably about 11 or 12 different variants, and some cardstock variants, virgin variants, different things. But the one that you're seeing right here next to me, that is the cover A, and that is the cover that is done, I believe that's the Andy Kubert variant there. Thank you, Chris. And then how easy is this to pick up? I mean, it is a Batman number one, but a Batman number one is not and has not for a while been what we like to call a true number one in comics, because there are a couple of things that you probably should know before going into this. I mean, if you are going to pick this up, just know that spoilers, Alfred is dead. It's kind of been a while now, but way before Tynan's run, and also Damian Wayne is missing. Damian Wayne is gone. So Wayne Manor feels very he Bruce Wayne feels very alone in this huge monster mansion that he has. So he sort of feels like he doesn't belong there anymore, and then he takes off to the UK. So that's really all you need to know. That's in the first couple of pages, to be honest. Now jumping into the eye, as far as who would like this book, obviously if you are a Batman fan, if you are a Tom Taylor fan, of course if you're an Andy Kubert fan, you're going to love this book. But I felt like there were a couple of other parts of this story that were really unique to Tom Taylor's writing style. And it's that so I guess I should say it this way. I know that there is Batman fatigue out there but it's because he's such a dynamic character. I can tell you right now, if you aren't a huge fan of the Batman aesthetic, this is not that. This is a very different story than what I'm reading in any other I'm reading almost everything Batman right now, even Detective Comics, which I wasn't really reading beforehand, but I'm reading it now, and this is nothing like that. This is a very detective, I mean, it's on the title, of course, but it's a very detective style story, like Batman the Black Mirror, if anyone remembers that, the Scott Snyder story, where it's very grounded. There are some unique characters that are in this story that are real deep DC cuts. I'm talking Knight and Squire, who, if you don't know who they are, after the show, look them up. They are I don't want to say D-list because I like every character, but they are kind of D-list characters.
Oh my
But they
goodness.
are in this story in a very important way. Um, I also feel like Tom Taylor was channeling some Christopher Nolan when he was um, when he was writing this book. It's really well done, and it is Tom Taylor does a great job of taking these tropes that exist with these characters. Like Batman's always got a plan, and everyone knows who he is, and they're scared of him, even though he's just a man. And he has a way of sort of expanding on those in a very human way. It's really interesting to see what he does with this. Now, Kubert's art, I'm going to be very, very honest. The first couple of pages were really weird. I didn't like some of the way that he had drawn just Bruce by himself. But you can tell that it very clearly clears up once he starts getting into the action. I don't know what changes, but after like page 3, Kubert's art is Andy Kubert. It is who you know. I don't know what it is, but it's absolutely wonderful. It's so much fun, and of course, this is 2 weeks in a row I've talked about Brad Anderson. Brad Anderson's an incredible colorer. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan. So yeah, I mean it's really really fun. It's a good story. It's a detective story, which we don't get a lot from Batman anymore. It's sort of Justice League and Joker and stuff in Gotham. This doesn't take place in Gotham, which is also very jarring, but in a good way. It's cool to see Batman be Batman wherever. And then again, so continuing with the aim, the M, the monetary investment, the money. It's $3.99. And it is 32 pages, and this is one of 6. It even says so on the cover. I love when a cover does that, except when it's Secret Wars, right, Amy?
Except when it's Secret Wars and they accidentally change the number of books halfway through the series.
They sure do. But yes, Batman the Detective by Tom Taylor and Andy Kubert, Brad Anderson. Go pick it up. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely not like other Batman stories that are out there right now.
Awesome. So before we move into my first aim, I did want to give people a quick heads up. A lot of our social media and promotion for this episode said that I was going to be featuring Jenny Zero by Dark Horse Comics. However, this book was recalled this week because there was a printing error. Unfortunately, a page from issue 2 slipped its way into the book instead of in place of an important story page for issue 1. So that book has been recalled this week. Your local comic store might still have their copies, but they are being asked to return them to the distributor. And the new reprinted edition will come out on May 5th. So I look forward to hopefully featuring that for you guys later. But I do have 2 Marvel books I'm covering this week for you, so rest assured. And my first aim is going to be Spider-Man, Spider's Shadow, #1 from Marvel Comics. Now, this is a big release for Marvel this week, probably one of the biggest. So you should have no difficulty finding this. This was written by Chip Zdarsky, one of 4 books he has out this week. Actually, it's not even a Chip triple dip. It's a quad. He called it something in his newsletter, but it's a quad Zdarsky this week, which is quite impressive. With art by Pascal Ferry, we've got colors by Matt Hollingsworth and letters by Joe Caramagna. Now, in terms of accessibility, I want to get this clarified really quick. You can see it if you're watching our live podcast or live feed. If you're listening to the podcast, you can check sideshow.com/geek to see the blog assets that we put up every week. But there's a really cool logo up in the corner, that nice kind of semicircle going on in there. That is the redesigned logo for the Marvel What If series that Chip Zdarsky, I believe he designed that logo himself. Now, this is, in fact, a Marvel What If title. Marvel What If fans rejoice. I have like 50 or 60 Marvel What If titles. They are some of my favorite things in the world. But one of the things that is most unique about this is that this is going to be a What If miniseries. Marvel is taking a dive on giving a chance to extending these alternate universe stories for multiple issues. So the last round of What Ifs we saw were all, again, one-shot stories. We had What If Magic were the Sorcerer Supreme. There was a Heavy Metal Ghost Rider. There was also Thor, who was born of the Frost Giants. But those were all one issue in the Marvel What If style. Some old Marvel What Ifs maybe were 2-parters that went together, but this is going to be a 4-issue miniseries, and this is really exciting. I had a lot of fun with this first issue. So, in terms of accessibility, the book does a great job of informing you of the information you need to know, but it does kind of assume that you know the original way that the story goes. And now this is very famously, basically, it's a what if Peter Parker kept the symbiote suit? What if Peter Parker became Venom? So it lets you know what story it spins out of. There's those classic editor's notes about like, hey, this comes out of, I believe it references Spidey 258, which is kind of the origin of the sinister new costume. You don't necessarily have to know everything about Peter Parker's story, and I think the story of Venom is so kind of synonymous with kind of Peter Parker's story that a lot of people just know it in passing anyways. But it does set up a whole new, never-before-seen situation, so you don't have to necessarily know what the story is going to be going forward, because that's how a what if functions. It's an entirely new presentation of a story with a few important changes. Namely, this one is what happens if Peter Parker decides to stay bonded to the symbiote suit. Really cool exploration of that. And there's characters you'll recognize. Of course, you know that the Fantastic Four have a hand in helping Peter Parker discover about the symbiote suit. There's a lot of characters from his general cast of characters that are present, like Aunt May, and we see Black Cat as well, Mary Jane. But this is a totally new Peter Parker. So I think in terms of accessibility, it's pretty accessible, but I'm also a little spoiled because I'm very familiar with the Venom story. So your mileage may vary, but moving forward out of this issue, it's all a brand new story, which is super exciting. And in terms of interest, if you love the classic Marvel What Ifs, I think this is going to be really exciting to see how those stories and those tweaks play out over multiple issues. This is definitely a story that kind of sets up for a slow burn, so there's not a lot of rushed action. I think of a lot of those classic What If stories where they resolve themselves about halfway through because they have to get to the end of the book super quickly. Chip Zdarsky, we already know, writes a really good Spider-Man. He did Spectacular Peter Parker a couple years ago, I think now. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, excuse me. And he writes a really good Spider-Man, but it's also interesting to see that it feels like Zdarsky is straddling the line between his modern Spider-Man, as Peter Parker is nowadays, but also the fact that this is a maybe 300 issues earlier Peter Parker. This is a Peter Parker from a very specific moment in his comics history. So the style of the writing and the story are a little bit closer to that classic, and I can't wait to see where those paths start to diverge. Also, if you're a fan of Venom, this is a cool what if, because you're going to see a Venom who's not Eddie Brock. You're going to see the Venom who is Spider-Man. I just think it's a lot of fun. I was really impressed with this issue. And of course, you guys are seeing on the screen right now the really nice Phil Noto cover. Phil Noto will be doing covers for this entire series, and as they go further into the book, I believe issues 2 and 3 are also solicited right now. You get a horror story vibe from the symbiote, so I think that's a lot of fun. And even if you have King and Black fatigue, this is a totally new Venom story, so I recommend you check it out. A new exploration of the symbiotes, but it's free of all of the connection to Null and the Hive Mind and the Grendel and all that stuff. So this is just kind of classic symbiote suit as it was. Now, in terms of M, the first issue is $4.99. It's a 36-page start issue. It's a mini series, but I checked, and the next issues are $3.99, but they will be 32 pages. So this is kind of the typical Marvel introductory, get you over the hurdle, and the rest of it is $3.99. But I think it's a fantastic start to the What If series, and it's a story that you're going to definitely be invested in for the next 4 issues. So that is Spider-Man, Spider's Shadow from Marvel.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited to read it. I think I don't have cover A. I'm looking at it now. I picked up I think it's like cover, oh geez. Sorry. I think it's like cover D or something, but it's the Pasquale Ferry with the symbiote coming out of Spider-Man's mask.
My personal favorite is the cover for the next issue, which we don't have here, but it's
I have it here, but you can't.
It's I believe it's Mary Jane kind of hiding around the corner. It's a very Michael Myers shot of Venom
Oh,
like coming around the
nice.
corner, and she's like protecting herself. So I think it's going to be beautiful, and I mean you can't go wrong with Phil Noto on the covers with that really
Nope.
nice painterly style. So seems like we got a couple questions coming in from social media. Moderator Rob, would you like to pass those along to us?
Oh,
There
Rob.
we go. Oh, are
I'm
you-
here. Sorry
Yeah,
about
there we go.
Sorry
Hello.
about that, guys. We have Mike Fella from YouTube asking, quick question: does the error in print that Amy brought up, does it increase the value of the book?
That's a good question. I think for a one issue reprint mistake, it possibly could. I will say that my local comic book store, I purchased the issue today, but I didn't want to review it because the writer was very sincere about, hey, this is the incorrect story. But my local comic book store did price it up because it was a misprint. However, I don't believe that misprints should increase the value of any book like that in the way that it is. Only time will tell with the market. I think a lot of people like the first day of oh, this book is getting recalled, I'm going to price it up. There have been some instances with DC Comics and Marvel books because recalls are rare, but I don't necessarily think anyone's going to be super excited for a misprinted comic. I mean, I have a misprinted issue of Saga where they ran the covers way too dark and they had to recall the whole run. It was like number 51 or something like that. And I have a misprinted issue of Thor where they also the printer ran too dark, but they didn't recall those for any reason. So it's completely arbitrary. The value is determined by how much people are willing to pay for it. But in my professional opinion, I don't think that misprints change the value of the book unless it's something insanely significant. Like I can't even come up with an example.
I can't either. Yeah.
Just a one page mistake. Because also stores are going to end up destroying their copies, so people also think, oh, we should get one before they destroy all the copies. But also, if you have the incorrect story, I don't know. Your mileage will vary, but I personally don't think that they're that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it totally varies. It's in the eyes of the reader, beholder. That doesn't make any sense. But and Rob, we have one more question right before we move on to the next book.
Tenchi Mazaki on our Facebook page. Deep cut question: who are each of your favorite members of Batman Incorporated?
Oh, of Batman Incorporated, that is a deep cut question. I think right off the top of my head, because I've read a couple of Incorporated stories, it would probably either have to be, I think it's Night Runner. Yeah, it's Night Runner, and I also like Metamorpho. Big Metamorpho fan, specifically from the Justice League animated show. I remember that episode so clearly, and I've always loved Metamorpho because it's just these C and D list villains and these obscure characters that were created in the early 60s or very early 70s hold a huge place in my heart because they're so ridiculous. And also, I like Night Runner. I just think the whole concept is really great. And his costume's awesome. So yeah, I hope those were deep cut enough answers for you, Tenchi.
I was gonna say I feel like my answer is not too much of a deep cut because Oracle was in that series, right?
Yeah,
I
for
like
sure.
Oracle.
Yeah,
I
Oracle's
I
awesome.
love Oracle doing her thing. So
Yeah.
and also I mean Batwoman. I
Mm-hmm.
I
Kate Kane.
I'm afraid my Batman knowledge doesn't run super deep cut. So I am a little bit more of a surface level person on those, but I do love like and also my Batman fandom is more the villains. So
Yes, of course.
uh
Specifically, a very particular green one.
very particular green one, yes.
Yeah.
But I would go with Oracle and Kate Kane.
Thank you, Tenchi. Always keeping us. I like when you guys ask questions that are like, "Hey, so really deep cut question. What's your favorite birthday party Spider-Man's ever had?" Like, all right, keeping us on our toes here. Making sure Amy, next week, make sure we've read every Batman Incorporated issue ever, just in case.
And we tried to find superhero birthday parties for
It's
the
harder than it
Sideshow
looks.
birthday week. It was very
Yes.
difficult because also when you type superhero birthday party into Google, you just get Pinterest boards full of ideas for
Hmm.
kids. But I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of superhero birthdays, I'll say Danielle Cage's birthday that doesn't end up happening at the end of Jessica Jones' Blind Spot.
Oh, yeah.
But
And I always say my favorite is when basically Superman and the Justice League had to create a microverse to hide their surprise party from Batman, and it still didn't work. So,
love it.
thank you guys so much for asking. We'll try to get to as many of the questions as we can, but we've still got more books to talk about. The
Yes, we do.
next comic that we are going to aim is one that I read this week, and this is a bit of a strange one, but I was not expecting to read this week. I was not even expecting to like it because it's so obscure, and usually when books are adapted from novels, sometimes it doesn't always translate well. So I am, of course, talking about Jules Verne's Lighthouse. It is technically The Lighthouse at the End of the World is the name of the Jules Verne novel from 1906. But this is just called Lighthouse, and this is written by David Hine, art by Brian Haberlin, and I believe the colors are also by Brian Haberlin. So this is a great story. Um, Again, the really broad strokes premises of Jules Verne's The Lighthouse is there are these folks who protect in the 1906 novel a literal lighthouse, and then in this the lighthouse is a supercomputer that is basically the guide for a wormhole superhighway. So that's
You just said
honestly
so many words.
thank you, so many words I didn't even know I knew consecutively. um it really is a trip of a story. I always have a thing. I have a soft spot in my heart for any type of space or space exploration story because I just love to see the big, to take from what is on the corner of Amy's screen, the big what if of space. And so I absolutely love it. It's why the Green Lantern is my favorite superhero of all time because there's just so many galaxies and different lanterns with different cultures and just it's so much fun. So, getting into the aim of this book. As far as accessibility goes, like how easy is it to find? I mean, I don't know, Amy, if you saw this at your shop. Rob, I don't know if you saw this obviously Rob saw this at his shop because he picked it up and he read it, but there was a couple copies at my LCS, so I think it was easy to find.
Yeah, it's not the biggest release, but a lot of stores do tend to stock Image number ones. I when I worked at a store, we used to
Hmm.
have a customer who his entire pull was just every new number one from Image. He didn't read the rest of the series; he just pulled every new number one.
Yeah.
But so Image Comics launches tend to be decently available. I think this is
Yeah.
maybe not as highly anticipated of a release, but that means it could be a sleeper hit that you guys would enjoy.
Definitely, and it's also by their imprint Shadow line, which has done some pretty good work. But this is again the smaller of their releases today. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what all has been released by Image, but this is definitely not at the top of the list for the marketing team because it's just such an obscure story in and of itself. But and then as far as accessibility goes, this is a true number one for all intents and purposes. You do not need to have read The Lighthouse at the End of the World, the original novel, by any means. I'm not like a novel guy. Like I read a lot of comics, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I've actually read this novel, and it was great. I thought it was really well adapted. The things they chose to leave out, I thought were really smart, and the things that they decided to sort of turn on its head were also really smart. So, but you do by no means do you have to have read the novel to appreciate this book. So, moving into the interest of who honestly would like this book. I was trying to think, and again, Rob, if at any point I'm making an idiot of myself, please let me know. But I felt it was a mix of a couple of things. Okay, so Prison Break, Raised by Wolves, and The Expanse, which is a sci-fi book. So it's the Raised by Wolves in that it's like there's this weird sort of isolation horror. If you kind of get what I'm, like Alien style, The Expanse in that it's like this mining colony. It's huge. There's a lot of lore, and it kind of drops you right into this. And then I felt like Prison Break, but I can't exactly say why. You'll have to just read it. But they're
That's the definitely left field choice there.
yeah, it is. And it has nothing to do with anyone being like Captain Cold. That's a real deep cut joke. But I I really really enjoyed it, and I think if you give it a shot, I think you'll really like it as well. I'm kind of jumping ahead here to the M in the aim here, but it is 4.99, but I believe it's like 48 pages. Um,
Ooh.
it- yeah, it's like 48 pages. It's a pretty healthy book. There are no ads in between. There is some back matter, but it doesn't really add to the story. They're just promo and such. But yeah, so it's like 46 pages of comic for $1 above what you would normally get at 3.99. And so this is a more expensive image number one, but again, it's really, really good. If you are a fan of like space exploration, things along those lines, again, The Expanse, it's really great. I do love a good space isolation type
Mhm.
story. Again, like Alien, but also nothing like Alien. It is a lot bigger and more grandiose than Alien. It's funny, and also a huge shout out to the creative team for taking Moses, who was one of my least favorite characters in the original Jules Verne novel, and turning him into a really dope. Like a robot for lack of a better word, who's a mixture of like C3PO and Hal from Space Odyssey. So but with a little more humor and a little bit more human programming. So, I mean, it's a really obscure book, but I promise you, if you pick it up, you'll enjoy it. It definitely takes its time. So if you enjoy the dialogue, I think you'll really sort of like some of the slower moments. I really appreciate a comic book that is not afraid to say, "Hey, I know I've only got 48 pages, but I'm taking 4 pages to tell a story between our main character and." An AI robot. Like, I think it's a really sort of it's a really ballsy move for them to be able to just do that. So this is Jules Verne's Lighthouse, issue number one by Image Comics. Again, it should be readily available, but I hope that sold it because it's a really fun book. I mean, I actually liked it more than Batman. Like, I didn't think I was gonna, and I'm a
Wow.
huge DC fan. If you guys haven't picked up on that, but I actually enjoyed it more. Like the writing was top tier. The art was beautiful. That's what me and Rob are talking about. The art is wonderful in this, and that's actually a wraparound cover. So there's a little bit more bang for your buck on the back there. So yeah, Jules Verne's Lighthouse number one by Image Comics. Go get it.
I think there should be more serious comics adaptations of literature. I know we've had some funsy Jane Austen that was kind of
Mm,
geared for like I think Marvel did the Jane Austen stuff, but I really do
yeah,
like seeing and not even in the same vein as Deadpool Illustrated. I think
oh, that's
there's
what I was gonna say.
so many fantastic novels out there that could do a really great adaptation. So that's exciting. I mean, I this wasn't one that I picked up this week, but as a literature fan myself, I feel now obligated to do so.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fun.
but I had a surprise pickup this week because I needed to think fast after the Jenny Zero change up. So I pulled this week Dark Hawk, Heart of the Hawk, number one. This is a one shot by Marvel Comics celebrating 30 years of the character Dark Hawk, also known as Chris Powell. Kind of a deep cut character. Depending on where you stand in terms of comics, he was introduced in the 90s. And so this is, and at actually 91, so this is officially 30 years of the character. Um, Very similarly to a week or two ago when Paul covered Carnage Black, White, and Blood. Was that what it was called?
Yeah.
Black, White, and Blood. This is a kind of series of anthology stories about the character Darkhawk. So on the writing side, we have Danny Fingeroth, Dan Abnett, and Kyle Higgins from with art by Mike Manley, Andrea DeVito, LeBeau Underwood, Juanan Ramirez, and then we have colors by Chris Sotomayor, Sebastian Chen, and Eric Arciniega, and then letters for all the stories by Travis Lantham. So this is really interesting because I actually am not terribly familiar with Darkhawk. I think I've picked up a few issues at garage sales before when I was a kid and was just like, I'm gonna grab anything that says Marvel on it. But this is both a retrospective on the character and a look ahead because he is possibly getting a relaunch this year. At the end of the book, it's not a spoiler to say they do tease a page that says Darkhawk is relaunching or soars again in 2021, which is this year. So in terms of accessibility, it depends on how open you are to characters that you're not familiar with, because I have not really read a single consecutive Darkhawk story. So you might be tuning out and going, Amy, why should I listen to you about this book? And that's totally fair. I mean, it's a character that I have a couple of blind bag pins from Comic-Con of him as well, but not too much familiarity with him. However, I found the stories and the way they were framed fairly accessible. There's some touchstones of other Marvel characters that also get name dropped to kind of help you put the stories into context. But in terms of a character I've never interacted with before, you get a good sense of him really quickly. What I do know is that he is the kind of possessor of a raptor amulet, or that's the raptor amulet, which kind of transposes him into the Dark Hawk armor. He's got the Dark Force. He's got multiple powers. His father has some villainous tendencies. His mother is a district attorney, and he has younger twin siblings. So that's kind of all you really need to know in these stories, and you do get a lot of that very quickly in the stories. There are 3 different tales, and one of them is kind of the more earthbound Darkhawk, a very civilian kind of story. Then there is an outer space story that kind of takes place in the middle of his timeline. You get some cosmic references, and then the final story kind of sets the stage, and I won't say how, but it sets the stage for the relaunch. Also by suggesting maybe that the Darkhawk amulet is something that can be passed down or transferred to other people. I really, really liked the first story. The kind of it had the trappings of a classic Peter Parker. Got to keep my secret identity. Like, if Spider-Man can't do the job, then Peter Parker can. And there's actually a part where he says, if Darkhawk can't do this, then maybe Chris Powell can. But there's a great line that carries throughout the story, and Darkhawk believes that he is doing the impression of a superhero. He says that I am doing the impression of a superhero. He doesn't believe himself to be a hero. He's imitating what he believes other characters to be. And I think that that plays really interestingly once you read all 3 stories. They are completely kind of independent of one another, so you don't necessarily have to read them as one linear story, but they do play really nicely, and the idea that he is doing the impression or impersonation of a superhero does come up in the first and last story, so it's a nice kind of bookend to the story. So in terms of interest, if you're a fan of Darkhawk, you're definitely going to want to pick this up. This is a 30-year anniversary celebration. There's some really cool variant covers. I picked up the Russell Dodderman variant because my store knows how to pull those covers for me, but there are several different covers available for this story. The book also sets up for the relaunch, so if this is a character that you think that you might be interested in, or you just kind of want to take a chance on a new character, definitely want to do this because it is a celebratory comic. It kind of highlights the most interesting and best aspects of Darkhawk and gives you kind of a quick primer on the character as well. So, and it definitely does set up for the relaunch. So if that's something you're thinking of picking up, I'm sure that when they do relaunch, it won't be required reading. It won't be like you won't understand the character if you don't read this one shot. But I think it will go nicely hand in hand with the way Marvel likes to prime people for anticipating a character to kind of resurge in the Marvel narratives. In terms of the M in AIM, this is a $4.99 book as well, 36 pages, but it's a one-shot, so it's just a quick $5. It's also available on Comixology, but it is just a nice one-done package if you are looking to either refresh, revisit, or meet for the first time the character of Darkhawk.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's about it, without spoiling every individual story. I mean, it was very interesting for me to interact with a character I've virtually read nothing of.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. He had a kind of, I don't want to say Power Rangers because it didn't feel full Power Rangers, but you know those kind of classic superheroes who do have like the big suit that has powers and
Oh, okay.
um
Yeah.
I don't know. I got some Power
He's
Rangers
got like
vibes.
a like Wolverine claws in his right hand. I know they're
Yeah.
talons probably technically because he's a hawk, but
And he's got the
just
cool
saying.
wings. He can shoot force beams out of his chest. But
Ugh,
yeah,
goals.
it was very fun, and I apologize to anyone who is the Dark Hawk scholar out here if I'm absolutely massacring my description of the character. But I think it's a very nice kind of
There's always
surface.
one, Amy.
Yeah, you know.
There's always
I
one.
mean, talk to me about Thor. We'll go for 5 hours. But this, I mean, in terms of a book that I picked up on a whim today, this was a nice uh, little something something from Marvel that I like when they do these quick little packages, and
Yeah.
especially to celebrate 30th anniversaries. I mean, Deadpool just had a 30th anniversary as well,
Mm-hmm.
so
Happy
nice to,
30.
yeah, nice to highlight some other characters who don't always have the spotlight.
Love all the purple in that cover too. That's
Yeah,
really great.
yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, everyone, that's all of our aims, but we're by no means done, of course. And you know, now with the launching of the local comics society, which you can go to side.show/, your LCS, we can actually start putting some of our rapid fire rounds, like what our picks are. We'll put them there for everyone because I'm sure there are a lot of books that me and Amy are reading, but sometimes they're in the middle.
There are too many books that Amy and Paul are reading.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. We're gonna do a fun gag at the end of this. That's going to give you all anxiety, and we'll join you into you can come with us into the anxiety palace. So, but yeah, so when you pop over to the side.show/ your LCS, we'll upload what our other pools are because I'm sure there are a lot of other things that we want to talk about that can all make it into the show. But we do have one more segment. Well, technically two more segments before we start rolling here. Amy, please lead us into pulling ahead here because this is a new one we haven't done in a while.
Yeah, you guys haven't seen this segment in a while, but if you have been a comics haul long hauler, you might remember that our pulling ahead segment is when we find that
Nice.
there is enough stuff out there that we want to kind of remind you about what's coming up. And holy heck, get your calendars out because this is
It's my
I've got
long
the
haulers noise.
thank you.
Bum,
Burp, burp. I've got the full run on what's going down for Marvel for pretty much the rest of the summer. We're getting some July solicitations trickling out now from all the companies. So in a week or two, we're going to have the full slate of July books. But as we pull ahead, I'm going to start with what's coming up right about now. We've got Heroes Reborn, hot on the
Yes.
heels of King in Black, which the last of the tie-ins for King in Black are ending today. Marvel Heroes Reborn launches on May 5th, and this is going to be a total upending of the Marvel universe. It's one of those events that's going to actually put a hold on a lot of your books for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
It spins out of Jason Aaron's current Avengers run. You guys have seen him including the Squadron Supreme. We've got Mephisto. Everybody loves Mephisto, who still hasn't shown up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But a lot of deals with the devil are going on here. And so the long and short of this is, what if Earth's mightiest heroes didn't exist? We're going to meet a universe in which Tony Stark never built the Iron Man armor. Thor is an atheist who hates hammers. Wakanda is only a myth. And Captain America was never found on the ice because the Avengers never assembled to find him. So
Oh,
we
geez.
are. The Avengers number 45 is actually going to be a fallout from King in Black issue, but then we're going right into Heroes Reborn. So we just kind of finished the Enter the Phoenix arc, but this has been building throughout Jason Aaron's Avengers for quite a while. And who is going to replace the Avengers but the Squadron Supreme? Of course, Earth's other mightiest
Oh,
heroes.
good. I feel so safe.
I know. And if you guys are looking at them and going, hey, I think I know those guys. No, you don't. Yes, you do. This is Marvel's pantheon that is a loving homage to the distinguished competition. We've got Blur, we've got the Power Princess, Hyperion, Dr. Spectrum, Nighthawk, and more, and they are going to be taking over with Phil Coulson as their official superhero handler. I'm looking forward to it because we get to see some fun spin-offs coming. I mean, you can see in the promo art if you are watching right now, we've got a Doctor Doom Juggernaut, we've got the Scarlet Speedster, I think she is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We've got Algog, the All-Father of Asgard, and that's Mangog, who is one of the last Asgardians. We've got Thanos and the 10 Infinity Rings. Just a lot of fun stuff going on. But there's going to be spin-offs like the Champions are now they are now Young Squadron, and so Kamala Khan, instead of modeling herself after Miss Marvel, she's going to model herself after Power Princess, and she's going to become known as Girl Power. And Nova is the protege of Dr. Spectrum and his Prism powers, and so we're going to see how the youth are inspired now by the current heroes that are. It's going to totally shake up the Marvel universe. The youths, you know. But there's also going to be what happens to the displaced heroes, what happens to these other characters who may not necessarily have disappeared or given up their heroic lives, but they've lived in a different Marvel universe. We've also got there's a there's a Luke Cage who's like a police commissioner versus Daredevil who's known as Saint. Lots of fun stuff. This is going to be headlined. The main event book is Jason Aaron, Ed McGuinness, Dale Keown, Federico Vincentini, and James Stocco. Lots of stuff going on, but this will put a pause on a lot of titles, as I mentioned, like Avengers, Thor, Captain Marvel, any of those big main superheroes. They're going away for a little while, so it's likely that your comic store is going to recommend you check out Heroes Reborn. It's a 7-issue series. You might check out some of the tie-ins, but just be aware that not every single Marvel book is going away like Secret Wars, but this will kind of change the cadence of a lot of other stories. But it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be crazy.
I'm
most
excited for
thing.
Peter Parker. Was it Shutterbug?
Yeah, the Spectacular Shutterbug.
Yeah.
And then there's Night Gwen, who she's a protege of Nighthawk, who is of course the Batman parody. And I was gonna say I forgot. Blade is the only person who remembers.
Oh, right.
What the
That's awesome.
Blade is the world's last living vampire, and he's the only person who knows what happened before. So we've got a little bit of. If you're a Blade fan, you're gonna want to check that out too.
Nice.
I'll run quickly through the next stuff because not all the books are solicited, but of course we've got the Hellfire Gala, which is going to be the hottest X-Men event of the year. This is going to collaborate all the X-Men writers and artists that are currently on any book. They're going to be unveiling the official new X-Men team that fans voted on this week in Marvel Comics and I think for the next month or so. You'll be seeing short comics that reveal who didn't win the vote. Unfortunately, we know that Armor, Tempo, and Boom Boom did not win the vote because of the short comics that they were in. But the Hellfire Gala will be the kind of new biggest X-Men event. And we've all seen the Russell Dodderman fashion designs, stunning, unparalleled. There are 12 tie-ins for this event. So it's half the size of 10 of Swords, but we'll have Hellions, Marauders, X-Force, Excalibur, X-Men, New Mutants. Then there's the Planet-Size X-Men special. And then we'll have X-Corp, Sword, Way of X, Wolverine, and X-Factor.
Yes.
That's going to be a big one. I'm very excited about that.
Just give Teenie Howard all the books.
Well, Teenie Howard's going to be on the new X-Corp, which is X-Corp and Way of X are the two newest X titles starting up very, very soon.
So stoked.
Very excited about that. I'm going to try to get the 12 connecting variants with all the Russell Dodderman designs. We'll see how that goes. And then we've got Extreme Carnage. Didn't we just have a symbiote event? Yes, we did. But this one is about more symbiotes than just Venom. Beware, there are spoilers in the image that I am showing you. Actually, there's a spoiler for King in Black, so if you haven't caught up yet, the final event issue ended last week. Good save. But the tie-ins do end this week. There's a slight spoiler, but I won't point it out to you because if you don't know what you're looking for, then you won't know. But Extreme Carnage will be written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Manuel Garcia. It's going to focus on all the symbiote spawns of Venom, namely Carnage and the Life Foundation symbiotes. So, of course, we've got Scream, Phage, and more. Scream seems to be being set up as a big character for this event. Extreme Carnage Alpha number 1 will launch in July. I don't have too much more information about that, but that's what's coming up. So you might have heard that there's a Carnage event coming up already on the heels of Venom. But yes, so that is what we've got going. That'll be July. So Heroes Reborn is May. X-Men is June. Carnage is July. Hope you are all set for Marvel this summer.
And if not, come back and watch this episode and then add them into your pools because yes, thank you, Amy. I think we're all very, very, very stoked for what Marvel's got going. I'm on the fence about Heroes Reborn just because it has nothing to do. I mean, Jason Aaron's on it. Like on paper, it all should work. I'm just like, man, I feel like I just got out in an event.
Yep. I'll be dipping my
One
toes
last
into
job.
it at least.
So I wanted to just also touch base on a couple of other books that are coming out from all DC and Image as well that I think you should all be aware of that I selfishly think that I'm picking up, so I want to have all of you take a look at. The first one is Batman Reptilian, #1. Now, this is by Garth Ennis, and of course, the incredible Liam Sharp. The one that we're showing there is the Bill Sienkiewicz variant that is absolutely beautiful. And it's a story about it says, what strikes fear into the hearts of those who terrorize Gotham? It used to be Batman, but now something far more frightening than a mere man stalks the shadows. And it's after Gotham's villains. So we're getting a killer Croc story by Garth Ennis. I'm very, very excited to see what all of that is about. I have no idea what this story is going to be, but I'm on board for it because honestly, if anything, I am a huge Liam Sharp fan. I love Liam Sharp's art. So next, we've got The Nice House on the Lake
Oh,
by
so excited.
JT4, also known as James Tynion IV. And then you've oh, sorry everyone. And then we've also the art also by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. And this is an interesting story, I think, that is very personal to James Tynion IV, and it's basically about getting your friends together and what it would be like to lose your friends, and even worse, what it would be like to lose your friends at your own hand. So a terrifying story for so many different reasons, but I believe it's going to be a 10 or 12 issue mini, and that's season 1.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think it's 12.
yeah, it's most likely a 12 issue maxi series. And so the first, and each issue is being treated like a sort of like an episode of this, which probably translates really well because Tynan does a great job of writing things sort of episodically. I think he's always done a great job. I'm just adding it to the list of incredible things that he's doing this year that I'm reading by him. And lastly is sort of out of left field here. This is a book that I'm excited for. It's by Doug Wagner and Daniel Hilliard. The reason is I had read their previous book because I'd backed it on Kickstarter, which again, we're going to bring that up in just a second again, but it was called Plastic. A really, really weird, very rated M story, just as a heads up. But it's there's a serial killer and the love of his life is kidnapped. But the love of his life is an adult sex toy. And it's really weird.
Oh,
And
now that you mentioned it, I remember seeing the covers for that book.
it's a strange book, but it is really well written. The art is beautiful. It's not just like, hey, we have this weird gag, pun intended, and it is really really funny. It's just a good book, I promise. Even so much so, it was like one of Robert Kirkman's favorite books. Like he was constantly singing its praises. So now that team is bringing you another book that I'm really excited about. It's called Vinyl. Now, Vinyl, thank you, Chris, who's just patiently waiting for my ramblings to stop so he could bring up this cover. Vinyl is awesome. I'm really stoked about this. It's an unsettling tale of psychopaths, sweet love, and a serial killer named Walter. When Walter's best friend, the FBI agent charged with his capture, is kidnapped by a death cult of sunflower farmers, Walter finds himself deep within an underground labyrinth filled with secrets and monsters. But are any of these monsters scarier than Walter? Probably not, knowing that team who's on that book. So there's going to be a couple of different variants for these. Jamie McKelvey in like Wicked and Divine. Hilliard does variants like that where they're very like portrait. So I'm really excited for this book. I just thought it would be something to put on everyone's radar. Again, rated M. It is a rated M book by Image Comics. So yeah, I mean
I like that they're creating a multiverse of books with a singular title that is a material.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe their next one's going to be called Polystone or something like that.
Maybe.
So we'll have plastic,
Yeah.
vinyl, and polystone.
Yes. The original trilogy. Yeah.
Faux leather.
Faux leather. Pleather is next. Yeah, so Vinyl #1, I believe that comes out June 20th or the third. It's the third Wednesday in June. So I'm really stoked for that. So those are just some of the things that are coming up from some of the big three.
All right. So going off of the point you said earlier about Kickstarter and absolutely nothing else you said earlier, we have our Holler at the Hall segment where we ask you guys a question. You guys give us your wonderful answers, and then we read them out on the show. So last week we asked in the Let Your Geek Side show group and on social media, have you ever backed a comic book project on Kickstarter? Because I was taking a look through my credit card bill and realized that Kickstarter is a wonderful resource for comic books, not only from publishers like we've seen with Boom Studios and Best Jacket Press doing Noctera, which went to Image Comics, but a lot of independent creators are out there as well. So, Chris Surma said, I have backed multiple Kickstarters, Lady Death, Hell Witch, and La Muerta from the crazy mind of Brian Pulido and Coffin Comics. I've also backed Tarot Witch of the Black Rose by Jim Balent and Broadsword Comics, several others as well, as such as She, Return of the Warrior, Strings, Aurora, and Impure Blood. You sound like a certified comic book producer helping all of those books get funded.
Seriously, that's awesome. Yeah, and you'll notice that Brian Pulido will get mentioned a couple of times here. He does a great work. Pete Tano had said, I tend to back full books over single issues, but yes, I'm also waiting on 2 books that that he had recently funded, and I believe he had also included a picture. We've got Weapon of God, Megalopolis, which is a great story. I have that somewhere, but I didn't get it at Kickstarter. I got it afterwards.
Yeah. And sorry, I thought we were gonna. Yeah, that's a great photograph of a ton of books. And also one of the great sides of backing books on Kickstarter is you can get digital copies, because I've started to run out of some shelf space for the larger anthologies I like to back. So I've switched to digital, and that just feels like a really nice way to help a lot of people. Jen Edwards says, yes, we've backed books by Fuzzy Joseph, Dan Brereton, Brian Pulido again, Simon Billsley, etc. Matt could probably name a dozen more creators. We try to help out as much as we can because we know comics is a passion project. You get into it because you love it, not because you think it'll fill your bank account. And we got some fantastic photos of Giant Killer and Pony Death as well from Jen Edwards.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we both love. I mean, Amy, off the top of your head, what was your most recent Kickstarter backing?
Most recent was The Preserve #1, which was it's a sci-fi kind of futuristic story about a manufactured monster hunting circuit, kind of a little bit like Hunger Games, but also like pro sports, and it's done for show and championship, and people are in the arena watching as these monsters get designed and created by people. But that's the first issue for a series, and then I backed a full mini series which is called True Cult, and that one is a satanic panic burger crime story about people who work at Burger Lord, which is like your Burger King or McDonald's, but there is satanic crime going on around the burger.
That's why that ice cream machine's always broken.
Exactly. And there's a joke where I got the first issue already, and there's a joke where the drive-through sign is printed or painted wrong in the parking lot, and it says drive-through. Oh. So you just hit the drive-through, and the ice cream machine is broken. But that one is fun. I was immediately sold by the idea of a satanic panic burger franchise. So I mean, you could just find gems on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's like peanut butter and jelly. 2 things that, inherently are like, why are these things together? But like, hey, they work. Yeah, my most recent was it's Cosmic Detective, and that's Jeff Lemire, Matt Kent, and David Rubin. And basically, it's a story about there are different gods in multiple pantheons that exist and just want to be left alone. But someone keeps murdering them, and they're as it just happens.
Darn.
What are you gonna do? And
is
so
Gore the God Butcher still running around?
No, he's on furlough. Okay. So and then the Cosmic Detective, your main character, is investigating these deaths while also trying to keep custody of his daughter and just live a normal life. So it's very like the dichotomy that like Lemire and Matt Kent, like I feel like one of them, he's like, hey, this week I'm writing all the cosmic stuff and you're writing all the grounded stuff. I hope that it's as weird as it sounds. So I'm really excited about that. But then also Noctera, which just came through. We had Scott on the show, and yeah, I mean, Kickstarter is great. I mean, Rob, if you have the time, if you can let
Rob,
us know.
Have you backed any on Kickstarter?
Yeah.
We're going to publicly shame you right now? No.
Nope.
Rob is shaking his head. Oh.
And Chris brought you on. It's like Jerry Springer. Let's bring them out.
I have not backed any Kickstarter books. I am a noob, I guess.
No, that's okay. Now you know that there are books on Kickstarter. You can check those out, and maybe you've purchased some of the books that were first Kickstartered. If you got Noctera or Berserker.
Plastic.
Oh, okay.
As Paul was discussing that, I was shocked to find someone else who had read that book.
It's such a weird book.
It's so wonderful.
You guys are in a weird club of your own now.
Oh well, thank you, Rob, for not helping us and backing anything on Kickstarter. I guess
Tomorrow's a new day.
It sure is. Amy, but we do have a new question.
We do have a new question. So this one, in the name of naming and shaming people, stop everything you're doing whenever you see this question. If you're watching right now, you are legally obligated to stop. Tell us or show us what is in your to be read pile right now. Show us that stack. Take a picture. Call it out. We all have those piles of shame of the books that keep getting shuffled under as you bring home the new stuff. So feel free to show us. We're going to be sharing those. We're going to do a whole attack the stack kind of. Just everybody's gonna band together in solidarity, but we will be posting that in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. We will also be posting that in the local comic society. You can go to side.show/yourlcs to get in on the ground floor, the soft launch of the official Comics Hall group. Yes. We will also be posting that on our social media, so you can check us out at the Comics Hall on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We'll do our best to, I'm going to take a video later and post it up on our socials of my pile of books to be read, because, we all got them. And you can always email us at thecomicshall@sideshow.com with your questions, comments, concerns, photographs.
Compliments.
Anonymous. You can shame other members of your household if they have them. But that'll be, I think that's just a fun refresher so we can all see where we're at 4 months into the year.
And then hold each other accountable.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Am I right? Am I right? Please tell me I'm right.
You are right.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I think that about does it for this week's show. We have another normal, I say normal, no show is normal, but we've got another week of brand new comics next week.
We won't be talking about plastic next week, I promise.
No, we won't. And we won't be talking about Jenny Zero, but hopefully on May 5th we will, so you guys can check that out. But we have another week of brand new comics next week, so we'll be covering April 21st. And then the following week, we're gearing up for Sideshow's Princess Week. So we're going to be doing, that'll be a fun special episode, because I know you guys miss our event episodes. We got all that good stuff coming up and more. Again, you can go to side.show/yourlcs if you want to get in on the soft launch of our official Facebook group before we announce it to the whole world. And you can always go to sideshow.com/geek to check out the blog for all the assets that we've posted up if you are one of our podcast listeners. Thank you guys so much for joining us for yet another fabulous week of comics. As always, I'm Amy.
And I'm Paul.
And this has been the Comics Hall. We'll see you guys next time.